and welcome to Dash and Dig on WLHU. This is Reagan, and today's topic is on how social media impacts athletes' mental health. So why does this matter? Well, as we all know, social media continues to grow. There has also been more attention than ever before around college athletics with rising popularity among individual athletes in NIL, as well as more people viewing the sports competitions on television. This increased attention forces athletes to balance not only their sport, but outsiders' opinions. Social media is a space where anyone can say anything, and it's at the cost of athletes' mental health. I interviewed 3 student athletes at Lock Haven University to get their takes on this topic. First, I have Sam Trudge here with me to share her thoughts.
So Sam, what are your most used forms of social media and what sport are you in?
I would say Snapchat and Instagram, and I'm on the track and field team.
All right. So do you have any social media boundaries, such as like time limits or not using certain apps?
Not really. I probably should have a time limit on my TikTok because maybe I should have said TikTok for the last question, but I use TikTok a lot and I probably should have a boundary for that, but I don't. And for Snapchat, I don't have notifications on for it and I don't have it on my home screen, so I go on it less.
All right, next question. In what ways has social media influenced your performance at a competition or how you feel about yourself afterwards?
I try and stay off of social media at a competition. I don't really like to look, I don't know, I just try and stay focused so I don't really look at that. But afterwards, sometimes maybe if you like don't really do how you want to, and then I'll go on social media and see like a competitor who did really well, or maybe I'll see like other people posting from our own meet that like did well, and then I'll like, sometimes like that might make me feel worse about myself.
Next question. In your own experience or that of your peers, have you noticed if and how social media use prompts the comparison of athletes?
I don't see a comparison, I feel, of athletes. I don't think so. I think I can understand how some people might want to compare online, but I have never found myself doing that. That's one thing I've always avoided in my sport.
And then finally, what are the positive and negative impacts that social media has had on your mental health?
Well, I think social media is a great way, at least I see a lot of support with all of our teammates. We all post for each other. We all celebrate each other's victories on social media, so that's always nice to see. I think sometimes it can be a bit stressful seeing, like I said, seeing your competitors and maybe people that are in your conference doing better than you. You know, it's easy to put pressure on yourself when you see stuff like that, but it's not too bad.
Well, thank you so much.
One thing that stuck out to me that Sam said was how her sports team uses social media as a way to support each other. Now I have Maddie here with me to tell me her take. So Maddie, what social media do you use and what sport are you in?
So I am on the Lock Haven volleyball team, and I'm active on mostly Instagram and TikTok. I try to stay off things like Twitter or X, whatever you decide to call it, just because there's not a lot of filtration on those apps.
So next question, do you use any social media boundaries like time limits?
I don't necessarily use a time limit for myself just because I am a student athlete, so I don't already have much time in my day. But I do set boundaries for myself just with what I'm viewing on social media. For example, like following certain people and like just limiting myself to people who are in my life at the time rather than worrying about what everyone else is doing.
The next question I have is how has social media influenced your performance at a competition or how you feel about yourself afterwards?
So on game days, I usually try to stay off of social media just because of how much of a distraction it can be if you allow it to. You never know what you'll see or what you won't see, so I just try to stay off.
All right, the next question is have you noticed if and how social media use prompts the comparison of athletes?
Yeah, so I just see like all the big D1 schools that are really competitive, and I see all the recruits that are coming in, and sometimes it can just make me compare my story to all their stories when everyone has their own story, so I shouldn't be doing that.
And the last question is, what are the positive and negative impacts that social media has had on your mental health?
I think that social media can be beneficial, but also can be very negative, just depending on how you choose to use it. That's why I have set the boundaries for myself that I talked about earlier.
Awesome, thank you so much. One thing Maddie said that stuck out to me was how she doesn't use the app Twitter or X, whatever you call it, because of the lack of filtration, which I thought was really interesting that she took that into consideration when choosing what apps to spend her time on. So now for my final interview, I have Salma with me. So, Salma, what are your most used forms of social media and what sport are you in?
My most used forms of social media are Instagram and TikTok, and I play volleyball.
All right. Do you have any social media boundaries, such as time limits or not using certain apps, and why?
I do not have any notifications on for any of my social media. I do have a time limit. I try to set it for TikTok the most because I don't want to use it as often, and that's pretty much why.
And in what ways has social media influenced your performance at a competition or how you feel about yourself afterwards?
Social media has definitely influenced my performance at a competition because I will sometimes tend to look at social media in the morning, like if I'm prepping for treatment, and then I'll look at other people who play volleyball, and sometimes I try to compare myself and I push myself too far with my expectation, but usually afterwards, social media doesn't really affect me that much.
And in your own experience or that of your peers, have you noticed if and how social media use prompts the comparison of athletes?
I haven't noticed anything necessarily within my own experience or my peers, but I have noticed with higher division athletes in volleyball that they do have a high comparison of certain athletes in certain positions, especially those who are very skilled. I see them comparing people on the same team who play a certain position often.
And finally, overall, what are the positive and negative impacts that social media has had on your mental health?
I believe that social media has played both a positive and negative impact on my mental health. Sometimes positively, I'll find things like videos that'll help me with certain movements or techniques that I'm struggling in, and sometimes negatively, it'll impact me when I compare myself to other athletes who are at a different division than I am in.
Awesome, thank you so much. In closing, a common theme among the interviewees was not having notifications on, as well as the effort to stay off of social media on game days to prevent any distractions or negative influences on their mental health.